Hold up. Screws are very tiny, so you have to be careful not to lose them. And it's really hard to replace as well, because not every store keeps them in stock.
Because I never throw a screw away.
Never. No. Back home I used to have a bucket full of them.
I don't know if you ever watch Wheeler Dealers, the car show. It's a very good one, I like it. But they had this Lamborghini, and they took it to a place.
Yeah.
They took it to a place to have a hydraulic hose replaced, and they said, Lamborghini, just take whatever's in the store in the parts bin, and that's the part for that particular car.
Yeah.
So they actually assembled it out of 4 other parts.
Exactly. So if you come here, you'll see that there's a little tiny space where you can put this through. Right there, that little thing.
Right, that's the crucial bit, isn't it?
Well, not so crucial, it's just once it's in there, then you go through this little hole. If you can't get it through the hole straight away, you can always use a slim Allen key. To like guide it. And it'll, yeah.
Side.
So it goes through there.
And then you thread it into the
hole. Now obviously this thing comes out, so if you want it to be easier for you, you can always just go bit by bit. But if you have a good enough system...
And you're not greasing it all WD-40 before it goes in?
So if you have putting a new cable with a relatively new outer cable, what's going to happen is that they still got Teflon on them, so they're going to still move, or just stainless steel, and stainless steel, they move freely.
So the inner cable comes with Teflon?
Yeah. So most of them are either completely stainless steel or the Teflon stainless steel. That's the 2 versions. Because if you put any kind of lubricant, oil or grease, it'll start attracting dust. It'll start to cram up the whole thing. Plus, if it dries up the grease, but the dust stays there, it'll start dragging in water. And even if it's stainless steel, the dust will rub away at the surface of it, and the rest of it will start to rust. So it's either or you're messing your things up. So these things normally can be latched in. Then you go through, just thread it through everything. So these ones are pretty self-explanatory. If you're not doing the back one, you're doing instead the front one, this here.
Yeah.
There's 2 ways of doing this. It's either you're upper pulling or from the bottom. So it will go from here, go at the bottom, and the cable will come up here, and you can do it from there. It depends on like which one you have. Some of them are actually made, you can pull it from above, from the side, from the top. They designed it in a way that you can thread it through multiple ways.
Are all cables the same? Are brake cables the same as this cable? No.
No.
So you have it has to be specific to...
So the trick is that the gear cables have a little barrel at the end that's parallel with the cable and it's tiny. The brake cable has a barrel on it, or a drum, which is crosswise to the cable and it's big. And then there's the road bike ones, which are like a mushroom shape and they're also parallel to the cable. And you can also have sometimes the ones that are like, what do you call it, for the cantilever brakes, which is like a triangle sort of thing. Or if not that, then you can have another one, which is the really old-timey 3-gear hub gear shifter, which comes with a little copper cylinder. Yeah. So that's all the versions. Number 1 that you use are this simple gear and the simple brake. If you have a road bike, you're going to use the road bike one. And that's really all the ones that, like, anyone who's not doing this like all the time, does their own bike, that's going to come up on. So make sure you put it to the lowest gear, or if you have an older version of the derailleur that pulls the other way, that part. So basically this is loose. So it's not gonna pull away. Because that way, This one also, if you noticed,
Yeah,
I put it
all the way to
into
7, yeah.
Yeah, so I put it into
So
no tension.
no tension in the cable.
Very good. No tension here. Then you hold the whole derailleur, because these can bend easily or deform, and just a little deformity can be very annoying for the system, because then it won't land in the right place. Now, don't cut anything just now. Just hoop it around for yourself, so it doesn't get caught up on the pedal or anything.
This is where you test it.
Yes. So I'm gonna stand on this side. So on one hand, start pedaling. You don't hear any ticking, it's fine. Then you shift one, nothing. Shift another one, nothing. So then it means, see?
Mm-hmm.
They still can be tightened up. When you're putting in a new cable, it's quite rare that it will go into place right away. By the book, on a new bike, everything, yes it should, it never does.
And that's why you don't cut it.
And if you look at it, it gives you a good grip.
Yeah.
If you don't have this much, if you're just retensioning your original cable, just use pliers on them. Make sure you always crimp the end, or if it's just the right size, just leave it because it's soldered. Because the thing with it, if it starts to unravel, it'll flatten out and this thing won't be able to hold it in place.
I've got a little thing for the end, the cable end, it's crimps on.
Oh, they always do. Now, hear this sound. This means it's stuck between the two gears. This little bit, you can give it like a bit of tension so it gets to the right place. And now here's where you have to be a bit sensitive. Go up one by one. When you go to the top and the bottom one, always be careful, because if these limiters aren't in the right place, it'll throw it into the spokes. So now, you look at it, it can still move, and if you notice, your wheel hits right into the spokes. Pick up your screwdriver again. You come to these things, normally they're marked as L and H, so low and high, and if you look at it, it's almost hitting it. So what you're going to do is you're going to rotate it in, just ever so slightly, so it can't move anymore, any further. Now the trick is with this one, you test it. You see it's not coming down, so that means you roll this tighter again. Okay, now put it back up, down, up. No noise, doesn't get stuck.
Like a train, like a Swiss watch, whatever.
Yeah, so it's not switching that easy, so I'll put a little bit more. Main thing is this one increases the length of the outer cable, so naturally it shortens the cable, so it'll move the whole system. So you only put a little bit of tension on it, and you loosen it a little bit, so you actually see what it's doing. Now, don't go too crazy on the first go, see? Because as you're moving it, look at this, and we're loose again.
Right.
On this case, I don't say tighten it again here, because what's going to happen is this cable is going to keep on getting loose for a bit. For the next week or two, depending on usage. If you go on a big tour, it's not gonna, because it's going to loosen up in 2-3 days. Depends on mileage, really. So for now, leave it like that, because in 2 weeks' time, we will just simply retension the cable. Before tensioning, of course, start with all of these adjusters on either side, make them be at the 0 point.
It's looking very good at the moment.
Yeah, looks very sexy. Yeah. See, now we can give it a little bit back, a little bit more. Now, as your shifter lever on here with the handle gets older, it'll loosen up itself. So sometimes it's not enough to just give it just the click, like the brand new ones. Sometimes you have to push it a little bit further. But that comes in, it's aging. That's usually a sign that, like, now it's right for changing.
But these things are pretty much a thing you change every year, aren't they?
No.
No?
If you're like a really professional and you use it massively during your races or your events, then you can change it per event if you want, or per every few events. If you're like semi-professional, then you change it as it wears out. Because giving it a time limit, say you broke your foot at the beginning of summer, that year you're hardly going to use it, because you'll be over summer by the time you get back. You have to train back. It's going to be winter, you're going to hardly use it. Giving it a time limit is silly. We say a 6 to 8 week repair on new bikes, a 6 to 8 week service, when we reset everything, because it's roughly the time that an average user sort of uses it enough that the chain and the cable stretch out. But it doesn't always happen, because something comes up to the person. They buy the bike, they have it assembled, and they can't use it. So we say, if you want to buy a new bike, because you want to do a London to Paris or something, or London to Edinburgh, first you have to train the bike in, so it's ready for that thing. A bike fresh off the shelf is never ready for a big tour. Never. And if somebody at the store says, oh, that's bollocks, you can use this for it, never. Never happen, never will.
Well, you can if you've got a mechanic in the van behind you.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Like a Swiss watch.
Upwards, yes. Downwards.
I'm always actually surprised at how easily this mechanism works. I mean, it's a very clever mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah, so...
Especially when it goes up.
So you can, for this one...
Because it's basically just catching the thing as it goes round, isn't it?
So you can find people like Johan Pu, Yozo Shimano, all these people who created these big brands that went through them. You can also find the people who use them for the Tour de France and were non-stop complaining to their mechanics about like how to make it lighter, faster, easier. And then, those guys really help the system. If you think about it, there's a reason why a lot of brands are named like Sinelli, Pirelli, Boardman, after like, big cyclists or famous people, because, they cycled a lot. They contributed to the sport, not just by making more people ride, but also by them saying, I used this for 20,000 miles just the other week, which is crazy. And
They're the ones who are going
to
they're the ones who are going to find the weaknesses in the system, aren't they?
Yeah. So notice that I didn't close this back yet, the front, because if there's any problem, if this little barrel didn't jump in place in there as it's going back and forth, that this is the time that it would just give you hassle.
Yeah.
But now you can actually fix it up.
There's a certain amount of settling, I'd imagine, anyway, of the cable.
Hiya. So, as I said, if you have like really old outer cables or really old really old cables, and they picked up a lot of muck or something, so if you look at your cables here, see that the middle one wasn't that good of a quality, so like it started rusting?
Yeah.
So on the inside, it might be like full of dirt now, and when you're shifting back, it might not be coming back easily.
What does the middle one go to? I can't see.
Hmm?
Oh,
Middle one goes down here.
Oh, there's front derailleur.
Front derailleur.
Yeah. It's funny that front derailleur goes to the back. That's all.
So now, we'll just trim this, and we're going to leave it as it is, because it's not perfectly shifting downwards, but by the time that cable starts stretching, it'll go perfectly in. And once you've used it, because you travel a lot, as we established before, you're going to just give me a ring, you'll drop in after like a few more tours and say, okay, let's tighten it. Or, you at home, literally with this one, just tighten on it.
Just give it a twist.
And when you say, now there's no changes, then you pop in and then we'll set it up. Because to be honest, you're paying me for one service, but adjusting afterwards should come freely just because it comes with the job. If anybody says, I've done it right the first time, you don't have to do it, you just put in new parts. It's like if a car mechanic would say, oh, I fitted a new engine, nothing to do with it anymore, just ride it. It's the same kind of silly. Yeah, let's just trim it now. So leave yourself about this much. This is of course preference, in my opinion. There's probably a perfectly good mechanical reason of like how much you should bring or not. What I look at always, this much I can still hold on to, even with pliers or without. The other thing, it gives me space to adjust. And if it starts to bend in or out anywhere, it's not going to hit anything, it's not going to get caught. Because if you leave it too long, it gets caught up here, here or here with the chain. It's going to rip the whole derailleur off. This hanger is going to break in half. And then, we have to replace a lot of things.
And it's easier to cut a little bit more off than just to reattach when you've taken too much off.
The general rule of thumb for cutting
is the uncut.
Yeah, so the general rule of cutting is measure twice, cut once. With this one, you're really going by your gut instinct, so it's always better to, like, especially if you're new, the whole thing, and you don't do it all the time. Think first, try it out, and then cut it.
And that's a specialist cable cutting tool, rather than just using pliers.
You can use pliers. Why I use this one, because this one is a bit more hardened. This is from Part Tools. Now, the problem with if you're using pliers, I wore through simple cable cutters like a hot knife through butter, because they weren't designed for stainless steel, they were designed for copper and aluminium. So what happens is they're going to wear out insanely fast. You're going to have pliers that don't cut nothing anymore. It will have like a hole in the middle, so it's not designed for that. But also you can't just use any kind of cable cutters, because most cable cutters are used for like bigger things, like your bike locks, for instance. A lot of mechanics keep the cutters around for the one purpose that people bring in their bike and they say, I forgot my combination. Combination locks, if they leave it with you and you have like enough time, you can open up yourself and just give them the code. But if it's like one that's key and lock, sometimes it just gets really, really rusted and corroded in whichever. Nothing to do with it. So we have like pliers for that. Or the really big locks, which is really smart. You spend £90 on your really big locks, then lost the keys. You bring it in and we have to angle grind it off. If you have to do it from a place, like outside, like post office or whatever, or in front of the shop, you have to go to your local police station, let him know, hi, I'm the owner, I'm going to come with this mechanic, we're going to be cutting it off. If any calls come in, we reported it, it's my bike. Because it's really insane. It happened to me once that like the owner forgot to report it to the police, and I brought my contract. I had security guards coming up to me, here's my contract, it's my job to do this. I had people coming up to me giving me, oh no mate, you're doing it wrong, you should be doing it this way and that way, which was insane that they're just on the road telling me how to steal a bicycle. And then the police came out and they brought the tactical force with them because I'm big enough to be a friend. So that's funny enough. So once this thing is crimped, all ready to go, we check the limiters, it's not coming on and off. We check that like once every, oh yeah, this is another thing. We need to check this. You put both of the derailleurs to the top, basically stretch out the chain as much. Obviously it's fine. Then you go down to the lowest on each, so the smallest bolt, and see that the chain here
doesn't
rub, or up here, because then you can use this one to push it out a bit. Depending on your bike, of course, it can or cannot work.
The front derailleur on that isn't the best, because it
it
doesn't get used. I just leave it at the top range and. I mean, that's probably why I broke the other cable, because I use the. I just go up and down in the top range.
So, why you check through the system is this is one reason for it. So you see if there's any problems.
So the front derailleur is stretched.
Obviously, but like the main problem is if you look at it, so it doesn't go low enough, but the cable's loose enough to allow it. So unless it's up here, it won't change, because if you look into it from here, you will see that the chain line obviously moves. This is what a lot of people forget, that like if you're up here, the first one, you should use it, the three on this side. Here in the middle one, you should use the middle three, the bottom one, the bottom three, because otherwise you keep rubbing in, and your chain can literally cut through this thing. and then you can go one way but never the other.
Is it catching then? I can't see if there's
Well,
where.
it's catching at the moment, but I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. So if you look into here, you can just see how the limiter works. There you go. So we roll one up. There you go. Now, the other thing is the nice, so it's now rubbing because obviously we left it at the highest. You look into it and make sure that like the way these sprockets are aligned, the radio is the same direction. Basically making sure that this one is not loose. Because what can happen is if you're moving it, start turning. One thing can rub into your tire and ruin the tire and the radio. The other thing that can also happen, which is funny, is that you will never be able to shift to the right gear. You'll be number 2 and it will be up in number 3 for no reason. Yep. Now obviously in your bike, we already checked the brakes last time.
Yeah, the brakes are working well at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
What you can do with your brakes right here, your specific one, if you look at it, you see how it's not moving the same way? The other end? If you go to the other side, I'll show you. That little screw, give it tension. It's not moving. Loosen the other side. This will balance it out. If it's still not moving,
Then
it'll be
it's,
a bit.
it's knackered.
Not exactly. So it means that on the inside it's corroded a little bit, so there's no lubrication left. So what would happen with that? You see, it does get pulled back, but you can feel that it's a little bit sticky. So you would use some kind of penetrating oil and spray it. But we're going to be a little bit more professional, not too much.
Other penetrating oils are available.
Yeah. So any kind. So TF2 is really nice for GD85, GD86, something like that.
But the voice for that change.
Yeah, so I use that for the I know, broke it.
Is it broken?
I broke it. Don't worry, it's still usable. So you take this screw out. So GD85, yeah, it's mainly for chain, but you know, if that's what you have, then you can use it.
Well, it was very cheap to keep but I sprayed on.
Main important thing if you're oiling anything here, or well, this is normally you should be greasing it, but a bit of touch of oil doesn't hurt it. This part that shouldn't get oiled up, and the pad shouldn't get oiled up. You pull it off. You can tell that it's all bits and pieces. You can put this one up to the highest. Yep. I messed it up. So, there you go. Just a little bit, not much. Of course, this will only happen if you're videoing the thing. No other time.
Yeah, but it just shows how authentic video is.
Yes, indeed.
The real people watching this will experience these real world problems.
Yeah, because if I would do this not on a stream, if I would record it, I could just cut the video, do it again properly. But then again, that's why the whole channel is called the Renegade Mechanic, because I do everything differently. So you put the screw back in. You don't have to crazy tighten it, because sometimes if they didn't measure out properly, just 0.5 millimeter, the screw can actually tighten the lever, clamp it down. Yeah. You loosen this one up because if you notice, you can't move it past. Because if you put it over, what will happen is the spring will not be able to tension. So this is something that's like on the one side quite clever, on the other side quite annoying. So if you put the pad back, make sure that with one hand you're pressing against the thing, because the pad is self-setting, and then you can tighten it up and it will be hitting the right spot. Don't go.
How to let the pad determine where it goes down.
Yes, very clear. The other thing is make sure you don't go all the way up, because it's really nice to go like, oh yeah, let's go straight there. Problem is the moment it starts to wear, the top bit of the pad will start to rub against the tire, and that just causes more problems. Ideally, in the best of situations, it will work perfectly like that, but not always. So look at the front, and let's see if what we've done works. Yeah, now all we need to do is tension back the other side, because obviously I put it one level up. Oh yeah, if you have the spring sticking out here, it's sometimes it's elongated, so it goes up all the way up. What you can do with it is hold it and bend it a bit. It's not going to break, it's a spring. What's going to happen with it is it'll be much more tension. In some cases that's more than enough, other cases it doesn't do anything. But if this bit's missing, then you have like an 80% chance that like the whole thing is useless. So it's very nice if you keep changing them, but you keep holding on to the bits, keep them in a bucket in the corner, because a lot of them are interchangeable. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Put some nice tension, a bit more. See how it started moving? That's gonna be it. Let's see if it's rubbing. And there's no noise. We're gonna go into wheel trimming next time, because yours has only a little bit of him. We're not gonna go crazy. And plus, it's a brand new wheel, so like we're still riding it in. The front one, as you can see, works perfectly. Both sides on, brakes well. If something works, don't ruin it. So if you're doing it,
one does all the work.
Yeah. Well, for mine, I don't brake with the front one because I'm always afraid to tip over. The other thing I do, that's why I'm also renegade. If we do a full service and something just simply didn't need any attention at all, looked at it, tested it, it's fine. We're not going to bother with it. We're not going to hurt it. We're going to check everything's, of course, zeroed out. But just diagnosing it, you shouldn't charge for it, because why? If you spare that money into the pocket of the customer, I guarantee you there's an 85% chance they'll be coming back in a week's time. Not because you didn't do that, because they say, I want to upgrade something, I want to do something differently, and they'll come to you, or they bring another bike, or they bring a friend's bike. Because the more money you save for the customer, the more customers you will have. Because 90s consumerism, where people just toss the bikes all the time, is now gone.
The costume.
Yeah.
But I would say from a perspective of a rider that it's very important to keep your local talent well fed.
Yes, indeed.
Because, I mean, during this pandemic, people will have noticed a lot of local businesses will not be surviving.
Yeah.
And then when you go and look for them, they are not there.
Yes. Now, the other bit of trivia is if you're doing this at home, in a workshop, anywhere by yourself, pick up your cables, and if you trim the end of the cable, make sure you sweep up afterwards, because what you will do is plant a minefield of little tiny wires that can pierce your tire or other people's tires.
Or hedgehog's feet.
Or hedgehog's feet. Tiny little hedgehog's feet. Yes. Now, if you ended up like me and you just busted your oil, what you can do with it still, to get it out of the can, is put a different head on it to salvage it, or take a bucket. If you regularly do these parts, you can do it when you have a part to do. Just milk it out by pressing against the side of it. Take a brush, and any part that sees together that you want to refurbish or just have, you can literally just go and just loop it up in the bucket, leave it in the. Make sure you can seal the bucket so it doesn't vaporize away. It's really a nice and helpful thing. For instance, I have a bunch of parts that I use to fix up used bikes that aren't good enough value to sell, but they would be nice for someone who just needs to get to work, but you know they're at the moment unemployed, they don't have the money for a new bike. So you can always give that out. Now if you've given that out, you've given that man so much help. Once they need stuff for it and they have a job to pay for these things, they'll come to you. You should never say that, like, you know, why should I do something for someone else if there's nothing in it?
No, we're all in it together.
Yeah, you need to think about future benefit for everyone, because if you think about
Otherwise,
yeah,
and we have to worry that if we don't look after our local town, we'll all end up going to hell.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
Yeah. So from my experience, since March, we're now in December, only in the last 4 weeks did doctors manage to get my breathing back to normal. So
Good.
I rely on everybody's help. So if people will not help me, I wouldn't be here. So it's only decent that, like, I return the favour.
But I mean, you know, we need to cultivate local businesses.
Yes, we do. If you don't support your local businesses, any kind of businesses, you're not getting anywhere.
But then we all have to get in our car to drive halfway
Yeah.
across the country again. Because we ruin
Yeah,
our
because
local-
because if you think about it, right now we go on, like we're in Hatfield. We lost our Hatfield Halfords. I think we had a Welling one we lost, and now there's only one in St Albans. So anyone who had like the servicing deals with them, which are great, they're cheap and they do a lot of things, now have to put the bike in a car and travel. It's also something to look out for. That, like, if you see something that, like, you want to have the service covered, which is great, but if you can't transport the bike, it might be worth thinking about. Are you going to be able to use it? It's very useful, but if you can't utilize it, no point. So it might be worth, like, you know, doing it like what I do. Because at the moment I only have a workshop, I don't have a display room, so I don't have the new bikes from the suppliers. They don't sell it if you don't have a display room. What you do is literally let the customer go buy it anyway, including Halfords, you know, use their kind of deals and everything, and then you'll be the one who looks after the bike.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you think about it, the warranty is
So I don't know if this is still filming.
it's still filming, yeah.
You still want to film?
Yeah, just a thing. Yeah. So just to close it up, if we do it that way, then the bike loses the warranty, sort of. But on the other hand, you don't pay for something that you're not going to utilize. And if your friendly neighborhood mechanic is nice like me, they're not going to charge you a fortune.
Symbiosis.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching the video for me, John. Bye. Bye. See you next time.
I used to be very involved in my bike racing business. And we used to talk about value-added reseller. And initially people used to buy the computers and then sell the computer with the service. So you would pay somebody £3,000 and come along and install the computer, they set it up for you, the rest of it. Eventually people figured out that no, get them to buy their computer from somewhere off the page or off the net or whatever, come round and then you charge them £45 an hour to set it up for them. And they're happy because they think they've got the computer cheap.
Yeah.
And you're happy because you're making twice as much money.
What they did to me, because I didn't know it was a scam that was happening, is that the guy sold it to me from the shop, the Windows 10. And it turns out he didn't buy the license for my computer. He took it off the new computer thing. So when he sold that computer later, I lost my license.